Hello and welcome. My name is Natty Cash, and welcome to NFL Predictions once again. Thank you for everyone for your patience over my last couple weeks as I've had a bit of a hiatus from making videos. We are back. Just taking a look at my overall record, 95-55 in my predictions so far. Let's see if I can continue to make that better as we finish out the last month of the regular season. Starting off, we've got an AFC South matchup where we have the Jaguars off against the Titans. Trevor Lawrence out for the season based on that bad hit in their game against Houston. Mac Jones is likely the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. He looked not too bad in the rest of that game, to be honest. Led some decent drives. It'll be interesting to see what he can do in a practice scenario once he's got a full week with the first team offense. Because the Titans, even with whether it's Will Levis or Kenny Pickett or whoever it is, still doesn't bring me much confidence that they can get wins. I know that they got that win a couple weeks ago against the Texans, but I think it just they haven't really shown me anything. Where then sometimes Jacksonville can have some good tight games, they just can't get the win. I think maybe just a new quarterback bump or whatever it might be. I'm going to give the win to the Jaguars here. Might that just be a little more motivation to say, hey, we're winning this one for you, Trevor, something like that. But both of these teams have had struggles this year. It could be a toss-up, but I'm going with Jacksonville. Next, we have an AFC North matchup where we've got the Browns versus the Steelers. Steelers sitting at the top of the AFC North. Now they've got some tough games coming up. We'll see if they can stay there. This is one where you'd say you need to get the win. Despite how well, maybe Jameis Winston is doing to lead that team, or maybe at least give some headlines to the Browns that are in a more positive light, he still is giving the ball over, right? This is something he's done his entire career, usually has a lot of turnovers. And so I don't think he's going to have that success, like any success against a solid Steelers defense. So I am giving the win again to Pittsburgh. That'll be solid for them, as that's going to put them nicely at 10-3, which hopefully they can hold on to that to then get the AFC North title. But we'll see in the coming weeks as their schedule gets a little harder. Then we have an AFC East matchup where we have the Jets going out to the Dolphins. Jets, again, all the struggles there, even watching some of the body language of Aaron Rodgers last week. He's missing throws. It's not just, other facets of the team, but certainly not a lot of success happening there. And there might be a bit of a reset as they go into next year. The Dolphins are actually a team that seem to be trending upward. Tua coming back from injury, he's looked very solid. Now with a 5-7 record for the Dolphins, there's an outside chance that they could maybe run the table. If they can get a 10-7 or a 9-8 record, perhaps that's enough to squeak in to the wild card spot. But I do like their chances in this game. I think at home, they're going to be successful. I am concerned about when the Dolphins go on the road, especially if it's a cold environment, as we've seen previously where it's not been successful for them to play out in the wintry temperatures. So I am giving the Dolphins the win at home. Then we have an AFC West matchup here where we have the Chargers going out to Kansas City. Chargers have been looking solid, 8-4, and the Chiefs have been the Chiefs, 11-1. Chargers, it'll be interesting to see what the Chargers do over the next few games, because they've got the Chiefs, then the Bucks, and then the Broncos. 3 tough games, and so if you think about what their season has been so far, 8-4, if they go into this tough run and they can't pick up a win, sitting at 8-7 makes it a little bit more nervous about where their playoff hopefuls are going to be. Can a 10-7 record be enough to stay in the playoffs, right? Or where can they go from there? So this game could be tough for the Chiefs, as a division matchup always is. The Chiefs have had a lot of close games this year. The Broncos almost getting a win. So I think the Chargers can really put up a fight here. However, I am going to say that Kansas City is going to be Kansas City. They're going to maybe not be as glamorous, but they're going to get the win, move to 12-1. They're still pushing to be number one seed in the playoffs, and I don't think they want to lose that here. So Kansas City getting the win. Next, we go to some interdivision matchups. We've got the Vegas Raiders going out to Tampa Bay. Vegas, again, struggling, right? 2-10 this year. I'm curious of what this is going to mean for Antonio Pierce. Lots of conversations around, well, which quarterback are they going to draft? Is it Cam Ward or maybe some of the Shedeur Sanders? Who are they going to go and draft? So their sights are really on next year at this point. Tampa Bay still has a very good shot of not only getting to the playoffs, but winning the division. They're sitting at 6-6. Only behind the Falcons because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. So getting wins like this is going to be really important. I really like Baker Mayfield and how he's played this year. Despite having injuries to Mike Evans for a few weeks, Chris Godwin has been out for the year. There is a chance, from what I understand, that Chris Godwin might be back for a playoff scenario if that ends up being a reality. So I do give the Buccaneers the edge here. That'll put them at 7-6. Even if they maybe can push and get a 10-7 record, that could be even good enough for a wild card spot. We don't know yet, but we'll see as the weeks continue. But I am giving them the win here. Then we have the Bills, Buffalo Bills, coming off of a nice win against the 49ers, going out to see the LA Rams. LA Rams have been kind of up and down. There was a point where they had a lot of injuries to start the year. Then as they got those players back, they looked solid. But I think there's still a lot of missing pieces, or maybe just not maybe an older squad having an effect. But the Bills are the team that look hottest. Josh Allen looks to be the front runner for MVP. And I can't pick against the Bills at this point. They are doing well. Again, last two wins are against the two teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. So seeing them being successful and taking care of business, I can't see why they can't take care of business against the Rams this weekend. Then we get to one of the other interesting matchups here, Bengals and Cowboys. Interesting conversations about how this is our Monday night game, and they couldn't get flexed out of it because it's the animation Simpsons matchup. So it'll be interesting to see. Both of these teams, if they went on a run, might be able to get into the playoffs, but it's still really tough for either of them, especially because one of them does not have their franchise quarterback, right? I don't really think Cooper Rush is going to be leading this team on a playoff run late. No offense, but I have to give the advantage to the Bengals here. Joe Burrow, despite a number of their losses, their offense has put a lot of points on the board, right? The difference is, right, their defense hasn't stopped anything. However, I am going to say that the Bengals can stop the defense or stop the Cowboys' offense enough that the Bengals can go out on Monday and get a win, maybe keep their slim playoff hopes alive. Even at 5-8, though, you'd have to run the table, get to 9-8, and hope that other teams have lost to then help you get in the playoffs. So it's not looking good for the Bengals, but this may give you a glimmer of hope. Then we look at a lot of interesting NFC matchups. First one is a lovely NFC North matchup where we have the Packers and the Lions. Lions look unbeatable, like they've had such a good run. I know they were beaten by Tampa Bay like way back in week 3, but they look really solid. They've kept on winning. Dan Campbell's got this team kind of running on all cylinders. But the Packers are no slouch either. 9-3 team. They just are in the toughest division in the NFL this year. And so this one's really interesting. It could go back and forth on Thursday night. I am going to give the slight edge, I think, to break the tie to the home team and say that Detroit is going to get the win. But as I've said before, division matchups are always closer than what we normally predict. And I do think, though, the Lions can take the win here. With this win, though, it'll be pretty tough for both Green Bay or Minnesota to come and get that NFC North title away from Detroit. Then we look at another one here, and this one's interesting maybe for a different reason, is that Atlanta and Minnesota have kind of been recently all right. Minnesota has been getting the wins, like they're 10-2. The difference, though, is that their schedule recently hasn't been that tough, but they've made it look tough, right? So they've had wins against Jacksonville, wins against Tennessee. Last week, they just barely beat Carolina. Now, Carolina's a little bit of a better matchup there. Not Carolina, Arizona. And so, it's really interesting for me to see, they're not really doing as well as we saw them earlier in the year. But Atlanta also isn't, running over people either. They lost to the Chargers last week. And usually when a team comes off of a bye week, that's when they're firing on all cylinders. And that wasn't the case. I even heard scenarios of, next year they're going to be playing Michael Penix and they're going to trade Kirk Cousins away. I've been hearing rumors like that on the internet, and that doesn't bode well to the expectations that Atlanta had of Kirk Cousins was going to come in. They're going to then win the NFC South handily and be a strong contender. That hasn't materialized. And so what's going to happen in this game? It's hard to say. Again, this is one where I could go back and forth. I wouldn't be surprised if either team gets the win. I am going to slightly lean towards the home team, say Minnesota is going to do it once again and maybe get a last-minute field goal to be able to win against the Atlanta Falcons. Another matchup we have is the New Orleans Saints going to face the Giants. Giants, again, no more Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is now a Minnesota Viking. And so many people are looking at this and saying, well, Giants are, I think many Giants fans probably don't want them to win games either, so that they can go for a quarterback in the next NFL draft. So I don't know if the home fans are going to be necessarily motivated for the Giants to win here. Saints, again, have struggled too, right? They've fired a coach. So this one's interesting. I would say the Saints are probably a slightly better team, so I am going to lean that the Saints are there. But, you've got players like Tommy DeVito that, he's going to show what he has, so he's not going to necessarily give up. It'll be an interesting one of those where, someone's going to say, maybe there'll be a decision further down if the Giants are too close to winning. I don't know. But Brian Daboll is potentially trying to keep his job. It's hard to say. But I am going to then lean towards the Saints getting the victory here. Next, we have the Panthers going up to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. Eagles have looked very strong recently. They've had a number of wins that they had. They beat the Commanders, beat the Cowboys in some previous weeks. Last week, also after beating the Rams last week, they beat the Ravens. That's a big win there. So I think they're playing very well. I think this is probably kind of the strongest that they've been so far. Saquon Barkley has been a great revelation to that team to then kind of have an all-around offense. Carolina also hasn't been looking that bad either. They're not necessarily getting the wins, but they pushed the Buccaneers to overtime. they pushed the Chiefs to just a 3-point loss. And then, so it'll be interesting to see what the Panthers can do here. I do think the Eagles are too much for them, and they'll get the win. But I think as a Carolina fan, you could look at this and say, we're trending in the right direction. We just then, as we get to next year, maybe looking to make some additions, draft well, and maybe we can start seeing an upward trend with this team. But they haven't played well recently, so hopefully that can be good news for them. Although I think it is another loss and an Eagles win. This next matchup, however, this one's a really important one. An AFC West matchup where we've got the Seahawks going to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Cardinals had a tough loss last week against the Vikings, and then the Seahawks getting the win over the Jets have now allowed the Seahawks to leapfrog the Cardinals in the standings, 7-5 versus 6-6. Now this one's really important because the Seahawks have already beaten the Cardinals, and if the Seahawks can come in here, not only could they win and get to 8-6, right? 8-5. They would also then win the tiebreaker against Arizona. So this is a huge game if Seattle can come in and get the win here. But it's tough. It's a division matchup. It's hard to win against teams, and Arizona isn't going to necessarily slouch. I think this is going to be going back and forth, and I think that Arizona is going to get the win. What's going to happen to that? Well, that means Seattle will then be 7-6. Arizona will be 7-6. Rams may be 7-6 if they can get a win against Buffalo, but probably more like 6-7. And in our last game, we've got the 49ers hosting the Bears. Matt Eberflus has been fired, and the 49ers have gotten trounced. But this is a great opportunity for the 49ers if they look at that division matchup of Seattle and Arizona and say, if we get a win, we're right in the thick of things. So they're highly motivated to, at this point, turn it on. The problem is that the Bears, yes, they have a new head coach, but you have to take into account the head coach bump. And the 49ers have struggled, right? Being blown out by the Bills is not a motivating scenario there. And so this one's hard to predict. I think it could be really interesting. I'm maybe going for an upset. I'm going to say new head coach, a little bit of an extra bump. I think there's a lot of talent on Chicago's roster. And if the 49ers overlook this game too much, I think Chicago could come in and get a win here. So these are my predictions. As you can see from our NFC Interconference and AFC predictions, thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. Again, I will try to be more consistent as we go from here to the end of the year. There may only be one other blip, which would be maybe Christmas time. But other than that, I'm looking forward to doing these every week until the end of the season. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.